Hello and welcome to Todd Talk, where insight meets inspiration. I'm your host, Todd Hiller. I'm an author, speaker, and longtime community leader, here to guide you on a journey towards fulfillment and balance. In every episode, we'll explore ways to fill life's emptiness, helping you uncover practical tools to create harmony, purpose, and happiness. Whether it's thriving in your career, nurturing personal growth, or simply finding joy in the everyday, Todd Talk is your space for real conversations and actionable advice. So let's thrive together, personally, professionally, and beyond. This is Todd Talk, and I'm thrilled to have you here. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Todd Talk. I'm super happy, as always, to have you here listening with me. And today, I want to remind you of something simple but often forgotten. When life goes wrong, and when life goes sideways, and when hell comes to breakfast, as it were, and something doesn't go the way you planned, I want you to remember that you still have choices. So have you ever been so wrapped up in frustration or panic that you forgot you could actually decide how to move forward? I know I have, and I think this happens to a lot of people. So the importance of remembering our choices are what we're going to talk about today. So this is a personal farm story for me that kind of connects the topic and makes the lesson a little bit more real. So here's the problem: forgetting we have choices altogether. So sometimes setbacks can trigger tunnel vision, and we get caught up in frustration and blame or panic or upset or just all around stress, and we forget the fact that we actually do have choices to make, and more importantly, we also have choices we can make. We don't just have to stand there and spin in a circle like the sky is falling and worry and wonder what the heck's going to happen and what we're going to do. We have choices we can make and things we can decide and use that to push us forward. So stress can cloud judgment. I think that's pretty common sense, right? Everybody knows that when you're stressed, sometimes you don't think clearly, or your judgment gets a little bit less good. You know, we don't think as clearly when we're stressed out. But that makes us feel like we're victims instead of the decision maker. And listen, sometimes when things go wrong and it's out of our control, somebody else has to make the decision, and we just kind of have to roll with it and hope we can play catch up and understand what's going on. However, if it is something that happens to you in your personal life, it's something that went wrong in the first person forefront of your day or of your week or whatever, you have choices to make, and you get to be the decision maker. And it doesn't necessarily mean that makes it easy, but it makes it easier when you remember that you have things you can do and choices to make that can help you move forward and keep going about your day or your week on the path you hoped you could walk down. And the tough part is that when we forget choices, the cost is that we stay stuck. When we forget that we can do things to move us forward, and also that we have to do things to move us forward, we stay stuck and we just stay in that one spot and we think, oh God, now what? And we run around like Chicken Little saying the sky is falling, and we don't know what to do because no one is going to hold up the sky for us. So here's the farm story. The other day, I separated a couple of my younger cows who were not supposed to be mixed in with the bull for the obvious reason. They were not on schedule. It was not in the plan for them to become moms and to that be their future. And so I separated them out and I got them all set. And I said, okay, things are good. You two are down here happy. The bull arrived. I put him in with the rest of the herd. Everybody was happy. People were making friends. Life was good. The following day, my dad called at the end of the day and said, all of the cows are back together. When did you let them out, or when did you unseparate them and put them all back together? And I said, I didn't. So I ran down to the farm as quick as I could, and I said, well, now we're going to have to resort them. Well, now all the cows, plus the young ones that are supposed to be separated, and the bull who's new to the farm and who is super nice and super polite and super mellow and really easy to work with and walk around, they're all together. So now began the sorting process all over again. But I had a second variable now because the bull was there, and so it was a little bit more difficult. When it was just my normal herd, I just walked them down, chased the two little ones where they were supposed to be, put the corral up, and everybody was happy. But now nobody would walk where they wanted to, or where I wanted them to. Nobody was going in the right spot. So I tried for about 40 minutes to separate them out and get them all where they were going to be. And I was getting stressed, and they were getting stressed, and I had to leave for soccer because my son had a soccer game that was 90 minutes from home. And I said, well, this isn't going as planned. And so I just stopped for a minute, and I looked around, and I made a choice. And the choice was that they were just going to all stay together. And we were going to leave it in the hands of God and the universe and Mother Nature or whoever else. And what will be, will be. And because the reason I separated them out and the reason that I didn't want one of them to end up becoming a mom, a mother cow, next year or in 9 months from now, was not because it was dangerous to her. It was not because she's too young or too old or anything like that. It wasn't for a health concern. It was just because 2 of the animals I have are supposed to leave the farm next summer. And when they leave, they can't be with child. And I also don't want them to have just had a calf because I obviously won't take a brand new calf away from its mother because it needs the mother to survive and to drink milk and all that kind of stuff. So I was stressed and frustrated, but I took a deep breath and I kind of looked up and I said, in the grand scheme of things, really, this just means one of 2 things. If she ends up having a calf and she ends up becoming a mother, then I just delay when she leaves, which is no big deal. I can say, hey, you can go and raise your calf, and then once the calf can sustain on itself, then they can go. It means I'll have a couple more mouths to feed, which is okay. We may have had a good year making hay. We should be fine when it comes to food to feed them all. We've still got some pasture left before it gets super cold. So I said I've spent 40 or 45 minutes struggling and stressed and chasing them all around. But I have some choices to make. Do I want to keep struggling and stressing and trying to get them separated? Yes or no? That was the first choice. And that came with a follow-up question of, okay, why? If the answer is yes, why do you want to do it? Why is it worth your time and energy to make yourself crazy and stress out all of your animals for this one result? And then once I made that choice, the other choice kind of came with it that I do have choices I can make. So I had to make the decision of what to do, the yes or no, do I keep trying to separate them? But also, from that, I had decisions I get to make and that I can make, and I have choices in the matter. It's not just an end-all and be-all, hey, this one thing went wrong and now the whole world is upside down and everything is ruined. I can send those 2 animals off the farm a little bit later if she does end up having a calf. If she doesn't end up having a calf, it's business as usual. My plan can stay the same. So I have no idea what's going to happen in the future. It's likely going to be that she's going to have a calf, which is the normal, natural progression of things, which is perfectly fine. But I can either delay them leaving. I can make them leave a little bit later. I can say that, hey, one of you is going to stay and the other one's going to go for now, and then when it's time that the calf is old enough, then the second one can go. I have lots of choices I can make. But in that moment, in that heated, chasing cows around, sweaty, looking at my watch, trying to make sure I wasn't late leaving for soccer to get my son to a game that was 90 minutes away, I was stressed. I was a little frustrated. I wasn't angry, but I was kind of annoyed. And that happens to all of us, I think. But when you remember the choices, when you remember that you have a choice to make, here's what happens, right? We will all face setbacks in our day, in work, our relationship, our goals, our health, forgetting to go to the gym, forgetting our keys, whatever it is. The universe always will have setbacks. However, I have 3 core things that I want to remind you of. One is that you always have more than one option, even if it doesn't feel like it, and even if none of them feel perfect. You never just have one single solitary choice. We always have different things we can choose, right? We always have options. The second thing is that small decisions forward are better than no decision at all. I think I talked about it in another episode. When I worked for a tree company, the owner used to show up and kind of try to figure out what we were going to do for the day and this and that, and he'd be talking himself all around, and the crane operator used to say to him, listen, we can't think the tree down. We have to cut it down, so let us just do that now, right? So remember, those small decisions forward are better than no decision at all. So make them. Even if it's a small decision, make it and keep moving forward. And the third thing I want to remind you of is that remembering choice puts you back in control of your story. And one of the things that we as people struggle with in a really big way is struggling because we don't feel like we have control. Every single person listening, and I think every single person in the world, to some degree, is a little bit of a control freak. Some of us more than others. Some of us a lot more than others, and I'll throw myself under the bus for this one. I like sometimes to know what's going on and to make sure I'm doing things the way I want to do them. But when you make those choices, it ends up putting us back in control of our story and the situation. And that in and of itself can bring about a whole lot of, well, not necessarily joy or happiness, but it can decrease your frustration and stress in the moment when you realize, hey, I'm in control of this situation. I had to tell myself, listen, instead of letting these 6 animals running around decide the fate of your day and how stressed and frustrated you are, you're in charge. You're the person, you're the human, you're the farmer. It's your decision to make. Let's go. Do it to it. Figure it out and make your decision. And that little bit of control that you gain back will grow as you keep making decisions, and it will also keep making you feel better, like you are not losing control as you keep moving forward. And as you're listening, I want to encourage you to do something. How about a little bit of reflection? What choices, think about this, what choices are sitting right in front of you right now that you might be overlooking? What choices could you make today, right now, in this moment, when you're done listening to this episode? Don't skip it, don't pause it, don't close out, keep listening, right? But when this episode ends, what decisions are right in front of you that you could make, and what choices could you make right now instead of overlooking them that would bring about some great change? Because I'm sure there are ones sitting in front of everybody. I know there's things sitting in front of me right now that if I just made the choice and moved on and got with it, we could make some progress in the day. And those little choices right in front of you are fairly easy to make, right? Or they can be fairly easy to make. But when it comes to the big stress days, when it comes to the big things that go wrong, here's some tools I want you to remember. 1, don't freak out, right? Pause and breathe before you react, okay? Take a breath before you burst, all right? Take a couple deep breaths and think about what's in front of you. Ask yourself, what options do I actually have right now? What can I do? And that's something, I have a very good friend of mine who is fantastic at framing things for me. I can bring them this giant laundry list of things that are going on in my brain and the struggles and this and that. Oh my God, this is going on. And what do I do? I've got so much on my plate and all this kind of stuff. And they are so good at just being like, okay, so what I'm hearing is your options are A, B, or C. And I'm like, well, why couldn't I just hear that or see that? Why couldn't I see those 3 trees through the forest? Or why couldn't I get that mud out of the water? But they are so good at it, and I am so, so thankful and so grateful that they are, because it is a huge help when I go into this kind of overwhelmed mode, like, well, what do I do now? They're like, well, all right, you got 3 choices, A, B, or C. Which one do you want to do? And I'm like, whoa, mind blown, like it's so simple and so easy when they say it, but I couldn't get there. But when you can do that, remind yourself that you have options and say, hey, what options do I actually have right now, right? If you need to write them down, do it. So my example at the farm was I wasn't going to sit and write stuff down. I had to make the decision in the moment. It wasn't a long-lasting or a long-term thing, because I was going to make my choice and then leave to go grab my kids and go to soccer. But if it's something long-term, write down your next steps. If that will make you feel better, if you're someone who journals or it's a long-term decision, write down what you could do. Hey, you know what? Here's the thing. Yeah, I could either do this or this. I could choose this job or I could stay in my old job. I could take a raise and a promotion, but it means I'm going to be 40 minutes further from home. Write them down. You don't just have to say yes or no in the moment. Give yourself the options and make sure you remember and know and explore what they are before you freak out. And always, too, remember, don't lose sight of the idea of progress over perfection, because moving forward and making some steps in the right direction are better than doing it perfectly in one single step, because sometimes we don't have one single step that's going to make it perfect. And that progress is going to also be one of the things that helps you, like remembering that you're in control, like making those choices. As you make a little bit of progress, then you might have some other options that come along with that. You might say, okay, here's my options. This is what I can do. I'm going to choose option B, right? I don't like A. I'm not crazy about C. We're going to go with B. You make that one small choice. You make that one decision. And then that progress, right, not perfection, you might say, well, if I had a choice E, F, G, H, and I bet I could find one that was perfect. But if you don't, and there is no perfection, choose progress. And when you say, I'm going with option B or plan B, whatever it is, and that works a little bit to help alleviate the stress and help your vision clear up a little bit about what other options you might have in the moment or with your forward progress and your forward movement, then you can make another small choice. And as you make those, you will also get some more clarity, because as you make one small choice, another one might open up. You don't just have to say, well, I have options A, B, or C. If you choose option B, all of a sudden now you might also have an E and an F to go along with your first 4. And you won't know that until you make a decision and make a choice and kind of work through that and walk through that. And I've talked about this in an episode too about the fire service. You know, I had a really great instructor, an officer in the fire service from years ago when I first went through fire school, who said to me, listen, kid, I don't care what decision you make, but you have to get good at making a decision. And when you make the decision, you might have to change. You might have to call an audible. It might be a little bit of a curveball. You don't have to naturally stick to the same exact thing from the beginning to the end of the incident, but you have to make a choice. You cannot stand there on the fire scene and do nothing. And, you know, he believed in me so much and had such great things to say about me. And he told me way back when I was, you know, a young kid going through fire school, he said, I have no doubt that someday you will be an officer in the fire service. He said, and you need to remember that you have to make the decision. And once you make the decision, a whole world of new decisions is going to open up in front of you. And from that one choice is going to come 5 more choices. And from that choice that you pick out of 1 through 5 is going to come another 5. And you will walk through the entire incident that way. And that's the situation at hand, right? That stressful situation for us. Take that out of the fire service, but that's what it's going to be like for us too. Once we make one decision, another 4 or 5 open up, and then we can pick and choose those, and we can walk our way and work our way through the situation to get to the desired outcome. And it might not be a perfectly straight line. There might be a couple curveballs in there. There might be a couple crooked paths or a couple half steps, but that's okay. The idea is progress, not perfection. The idea is to get yourself through the situation, to manage the stress, remember that you have options, remember that you have choices to make and that you can make, and also that you have to make, and get yourself headed in the right direction and push yourself through the situation, and you'll come out the other side. And it won't be super easy, and sometimes it's not super quick. My situation at the farm was fairly cut and dry. Do you want to separate them, yes or no? I said, nope, I'm not going to stress myself, the animals, and be late for soccer and have my son miss his game. We're going to leave them all together and let nature decide. That was my decision. So that was quick and in the moment. But if it's not quick, that's okay too. Remember your options, pursue your options, explore your options, and don't make a snap judgment too quickly. In the grand scheme of things, I could probably still go down to the farm right now and separate them because it's only been a couple of days, and chances are that they have not intermingled. The bull and this young cow have not gotten together in the way that, you know, nature intended. It might not have happened yet, and I could probably still separate them, and nothing would change. And my normal original plan could be the same as I planned it to be when I made it 6 months ago. But those are the types of things you have to decide. Give yourself the option to make the choices, and remember some of the choices you have to make upfront right away to keep yourself moving forward. And I want you to remember a couple things. Even when life throws you a slider or a curveball or a knuckleball, you are never powerless. You always have choices. It is your life. You get to figure out how it's going to go and how it's going to work. You are never powerless, so please don't feel that way. You know, when life, knocks you sideways, don't forget your choices. And you can stay where you are, or you can choose to move forward, and that choice makes all the difference, because staying where you are will never be forward movement. Staying where you are will never be progress. You'll never go in the right direction if you just stand still and spin in a circle and throw your hands up and say, but the sky is falling, I don't know what to do. If you're feeling stressed today or you have felt stressed, please take a minute to take a handful of deep breaths. And remember, you have choices. You have things you can do. And they might not be perfect. And they might not be what you expected them to be. And you might not have any on the table that you think are better than the others. And you have to just draw randomly because you think, well, all 3 options I'm giving myself right now have the same weight and have the same amount of, leverage and the same amount of sway with my decision. And I like them all just a little bit equally the same. That's okay. Pick one and move forward, because standing still will get you nowhere. And I mean that literally. And I mean that figuratively. Standing still will get you nowhere. When you have a choice to make, when you have a stressful situation at hand, grab yourself, take a couple deep breaths, pull yourself up, give yourself the pep talk of, hey, listen, I've got some choices to make. What are they? Figure them out. Start making a choice. Push forward and pursue it. The quickest way to get through the storm and to get through the stress is to walk in head first and head on and face it, because the sooner you walk right into it, the sooner you can come right out the other side. As always, thank you so much for listening, my friends. If this has resonated with you or you have found it helpful, please like and comment and subscribe. Follow along. Download the episode if you want to so you can listen to it at a later date. And please share it with someone who you might think might like to hear it. I appreciate your messages. I appreciate you listening more than I can even say. Thank you so much for your time. As always, be well, and I hope you've enjoyed the message.
Thanks for tuning in to Todd Talk. If you've liked what you've heard, please go ahead and subscribe and follow along so you don't miss any updates or new episodes. Thanks very much and enjoy the rest of your day.